Even though we're in a housing crunch, Canadian developers are building less houses than before. And what's the reason for this? For reference, 22% of Canadian home builders are canceling projects because of high interest rates, with the high interest rates making these developments less profitable. For reference, these are still highly profitable projects. They are just less profitable than they were at the peak of the pandemic when interest rates were basically zero. On the other side of that coin, investors now account for 30% of home buying in Canada, which means that basically 1 in every 3rd home in Canada is not one that's being used for residential housing. It's one that's being used as a vehicle to create more wealth for the upper class, because we're no longer in an era where somebody in the middle class can actually afford an investment home. On the federal side, the government is contemplating whether or not they should be involved in building houses again. If you look back to World War II, when we needed a big housing boom, the government got involved and built the houses. But ever since the neoliberal era of economics in the 1980s, the government has not been doing what they need to do to keep housing stock high. Because, the free market. Meanwhile, our provinces are doing nothing to ensure that affordable housing is included in any plans. Like, for example, in Toronto, Doug Ford has made it so that there are no affordability requirements for the Ontario Line housing site. We are building an extra subway line through our largest city, and there are no affordability requirements, which means that all of the homes that are going to go up are going to be astronomically expensive, which will cause the gentrification of every single neighborhood across that subway line. And one of the main problems that we are seeing here is that developers are looking for more and more profits every year. And if developers aren't willing to do their job, if the free market is not doing its job, then the government needs to step up. You might be saying, well, there's just not enough incentives. What do you mean? Doug Ford has been providing nothing but incentives for developers. He cut the developer fees. Doug Ford has been doing everything in his power to give handouts to the developers. Yet developers are still building less housing. This is not an issue of free markets. This is not an issue of incentives. This is not an issue of taxation. The issue is that housing has become an investment vehicle. And I'm sorry, but there cannot be endless growth for investors. There cannot be endless growth for these developers. Because endless growth for investors and developers means a continuing decrease in the affordability of homes in Canada. The federal and provincial governments need to take this seriously. Incentivize purpose-built rental apartments, but limit corporate ownership in housing. Limit investor speculation in housing, and start building affordable housing, especially on transit lines, because what we have been doing is not working. The free market will not fix this. We need to fix this.